Yo, what's up, y'all? It's Nate for Forever Nate Reaction First TV, and I am about to count down or do a reaction to the countdown of the 10 worst movies of 2017. Y'all know it's about to be the end of the year. It's coming to a close in 2 more days. So without further ado, let's get to the reaction.
The movie business isn't perfect. Every year is always going to have a few cinematic disasters, and 2017 isn't any different. While the year has produced some truly great films, it also has had a fair share of clunkers, from malformed horror movies and badly made biopics to overbearing blockbusters that just might give you a migraine. Here are the worst movies that have been released in 2017 so far. The Bye-Bye Man. With movies like Split, Get Out, and It Comes at Night, 2017 has been a pretty solid year for horror. But on the flip side, we also got The Bye-Bye Man.
Tell me. Bye-bye, man.
Written by Jonathan Penner and directed by Stacy Tidal, this January fright flick has been described as an insult to horror fans.
I didn't
and
like
one of the
this
emptiest,
movie.
nonsensical, haunted
I
thrillers ever
never
to fail
seen the
genre
movie.
audiences. And The Bye-Bye Man totally deserved the bashing it took from critics.
I never seen the movie, but I didn't think that this was probably one of the worst horror films they could have came out with of this year, because they could have. I don't think The Bye-Bye Man was a bright idea to make. I'm just gonna put it like that.
As a movie, it fails on every level imaginable, from the acting to the directing to the laughable bloodless kills. And worst of all, the bad guy's mythology doesn't actually make sense. What's up with the coins? What's up with the train? What's up with the CGI mess of a hellhound?
Don't say it, don't think it.
And definitely don't watch it.
Yeah.
Sleepless. Directed by Barambo Adar.
I've never
Sleepless is an
seen this
American
one. I wanna
remake of a
see.
French thriller called Sleepless Night. The plot follows a crooked Las Vegas cop named Vincent on a mission to rescue his son from a gang of local drug dealers. But while the foreign film has been hailed as a masterclass, the English language adaptation is the worst kind of movie in the world. It isn't good, but it isn't laughably bad either. Instead, it's amazingly average. Or as
I
one
didn't
critic
think
put
it's
it,
gonna make
Sleepless
it to
is
the
funny sometimes, but
worst
not
top
funny
10,
enough.
'cause it got
Exciting
James Fox
sometimes,
and
but
T.I.
never
in it,
exciting
the
enough,
best
which isn't
two
exactly a
actors.
ringing endorsement. The Shack. In 2007, author William P. Young published The Shack, a best-selling novel about grief, guilt, and God. 10 years later, it was turned into a movie starring Sam Worthington, Octavia Spencer, and Tim McGraw. And, spoiler alert, one of those actors literally...
This movie seemed like a cheesy love story, a cheesy romantic story. It just seemed cheesy all around, and on top of that, they got somebody trying to play God. Right. You can't play the man who made man. No wonder why I made the top 10.
plays God. Variety summed it up as a Hallmark card therapy session. If you're looking for deep truths about religion, you'd be better off looking just about anywhere else.
Now that was a funny movie. I love Bruce Almighty. That was funny.
Nope, you won't find any answers to life's big questions here, unless you wanted to know if God is a Neil Young fan.
I don't
Second
think he
spoiler
is.
alert? Yep.
I don't
On the
think
other
he
hand,
is.
you will get to see Sam Worthington race Jesus across a lake. So there's that. Collide. Directed and co-written by Aaron Creevy, Collide tells the classic tale of a young crook, played by Nicholas Hoult, who gives up his life of crime after falling in love with a...
Another cheesy love story of a crook trying to find love in a bartender and get his life back together, basically, or something like that. But it sounds like another cheesy love story. Like, why do movies, they got bad boys trying to be a good guy and trying to fall in love with, like, a bartender or anything like that, that type, like, it's no wonder why these movies made the worst top 10, because they're just cheesy, sound like cheesy romantic fishing stories and love stories.
bartender, only to get involved in one last heist to pay for his girlfriend's kidney transplant.
A
Unfortunately,
cheesy love
none of the
story.
pieces of the film really amount to much. Holt just can't hold the movie together, and according to one review, the script is so far from great that it's actually diabolical. IndieWire, on the other hand, puts blame on Creevy not for his writing, but for his incompetence behind the camera, resulting in a movie with the credibility of a soap opera and the
See?
creativity of a car commercial. However, almost all the critics agree that if you're going to watch this thing, you'll at least get a kick out of Anthony Hopkins and Ben Kingsley's performances. All eyes on me. Tupac Shakur was one of the most influential artists of his
I
generation,
didn't
and
think
he
it was
definitely
gonna make
deserved
the
a better
top
biopic
10.
than All
I
Eyes
thought
on
the
Me.
movie was
The movie
good.
glosses heavily over the rapper's career, hitting the highlights instead of really digging into his life. As many critics have pointed out, the film plays more like a Wikipedia page than an
I thought the
actual
movie was good.
Here's hoping one day
I didn't-
some future filmmaker makes a Tupac movie that
I thought All Eyes on Me was a pretty good movie. I thought it brought sunlight to at least some of his life. Like some of the things that happened in the movie really happened. He did get shot twice. He did die at the end. You know what I'm saying? Probably in between they probably made up some stuff here and there. But I thought the movie was good overall. You know what I'm saying? I didn't think it'd make the top 10 worst movies.
delves a bit deeper. Baywatch.
Yeah, I didn't like
Based
this.
on the hit TV show
I didn't
starring
like this
David
movie too
Hasselhoff
much.
and Pamela Anderson, Baywatch looked pretty good on paper. It stars Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron as super shredded lifeguards who spend their days saving lives, cracking jokes, and fighting crime. But after Baywatch hit theaters in May 2017, critics immediately slammed the movie for being, well, bad. So what's up with the hate? Maybe it's because the movie focused a little too much on jokes involving body parts and fluids. It's not hard to see why critics didn't feel the need to save this movie from drowning at
I
the
didn't
box
like this
office.
movie too much.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Long
Or this
Haul.
movie at all.
Directed by David Bowers,
The book
Diary
was-
of a Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul
the
is the
book
fourth
was
entry in a
not
series
so
of
good.
miserable kids' films. And if you love your children, you'll never let them watch any of these movies. Ever. The Long Haul finds the Heffley family on a road trip across America. Along the way, audiences are bombarded
I
with a
didn't think this
never-ending
movie was
parade of
good at all.
projectile
Not
vomit,
even a book.
urine-filled
I
bottles,
wouldn't let
and
my
more
kids
lazy
watch
poop
this.
jokes than you ever dreamed possible. As one critic put it, you'll never know how good the first three Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies were until you're forced to see the fourth one. Underworld Blood Wars. Kate Beckinsale has been playing the character of Celine since 2003. In other words, she's been making the
I thought Underworld was a good movie. I thought all three parts, I think it's the third part of this movie. The third part of this movie. I thought all three parts was good because I love Underworld. Underworld's probably one of the best vampire wolves likening whatever the other crowd called themselves movies of all. Underworld is the best movie of all times. How is it a bad movie? It's not even the worst movie. It's like a movie you can sit down and watch Underworld all day with no problem in the world because that's the type of movie it is because it's so freaking good.
Underworld movies for a long, long time.
That's
It's a shame
crazy.
they're all so terrible.
I don't see how it
Keeping
made the
with
top
tradition,
10.
Underworld Blood Wars lives up to the franchise's monstrously awful reputation. Only Underworld Evolution has a worse Rotten Tomato score. As usual, the plot is vampires fight werewolves, and Celine wears a lot of leather. The directing is uninspired, the dialogue is stilted, and it may just be the bluest movie ever made. In other words, it's probably time to drive a stake through this franchise's heart and let Kate Beckinsale move on to bigger and better things. She's killed enough lichens for one lifetime.
Man, that was a
The space
good
between
movie,
us.
man.
This sci-fi story starts with a bunch of astronauts on their way
Another
to the Red Planet.
cheesy
But evidently they
movie.
skipped all their medical tests because it turns out one of the scientists is pregnant. She dies giving birth, and her son Gardner, played by Asa Butterfield, spends the next 16 years on Mars.
Wow.
Eventually, he risks coming to Earth in order to find his long-lost dad and meet up with a girl he's been chatting with online. Perhaps the story might have worked better if Butterfield and co-star Britt Robertson made a convincing couple. But the duo
Oh,
lacked
wow.
any spark whatsoever. As a
Yeah,
result,
just another
we're treated to a
cheesy
second-rate
love
love story that the playlist called the equivalent of astronaut ice cream, lacking in substance and crumbling to bits at the slightest pressure.
Wow.
Chips. Ever
This
wish
seemed
Hollywood
like
would
a
bring back the
corny movie.
homophobic humor of the 90s? No? Then you might want to pass on Chips. Written and directed by Dax Shepard, the movie focuses on two motorcycle cops played by Shepard and Michael Pena who are trying to bust a dirty cop. But really, they spend most of their time ogling women, joking about cat poop, and accidentally touching each other's private parts.
Oh, wow.
I could have swore I felt either your nose or your lips. It might have been like a little bit of contact.
With a movie this classy, it should come as no surprise that Chips crashed
It
and burned
looked
with
like it was a
audiences
corny
and
movie.
critics. All in all, Chips is the kind of comedy that gives the genre a bad name. And it makes you wonder what these actors were thinking when they joined the film in the first
Trying to get
place.
a paycheck.
The Mummy. Ever since Iron Man burst onto the scene in 2008, movie studios have desperately been trying to copy the Marvel model. Now, we've got the Dark Universe, an attempt by Universal to cash in on the interconnected movie
I didn't
franchise
like
craze.
Mummy
But instead
1,
of relying
2,
on
3,
talking
or
raccoons
4.
or thunder
As
gods,
if this the
the Dark
fourth one.
Universe is
I didn't
reviving
like
classic
Mummy
movie
at all.
monsters like The Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, and The Mummy, and the always classic practice of handgun archaeology.
Nick!
which we can all agree Brendan Fraser did better. Unfortunately for Universal, they bungled their whole rebooted universe thing right out of the gate. The Mummy bombed at the domestic box office, and the film was savaged by critics. From the opening scene involving Iraqi insurgents to the undead mummy herself, few critics found anything positive to say about the film. And if you thought the screenplay was less than original, well, most critics agree, as plenty of reviews pointed out, how the Mummy lifted elements from the movies like Life Force and An American Werewolf in London. But worst of all, the Mummy tried to set up a cinematic universe in just 2 hours, whereas the MCU unfolded over several movies. By trying to lay the framework for a future franchise in just one go, the story suffered. As a result, The Mummy hasn't done much to brighten up the future of Universal's dark universe.
Never gonna brighten up.
Transformers: The Last Night. Michael
like
Bay finally
the
did
first
it.
two
He finally
Transformers.
made the worst
The
Transformers
last two
movie of all
Transformers
time.
was not a big fan
Genius.
of.
Hi, I'm Michael Bay.
Not
Was
even
not a
Anthony
big fan
Hopkins
of.
could salvage this mess from the scrap heap. Not that he really seemed to care about trying.
Yes, but you want to know, don't you, dude?
What can anyone say about The Last Night to sum up its awfulness? Rolling Stone called it
That's what I can say
2017's
about it.
most toxic movie.
I
And
like
Empire wrote that it's overlong, overstuffed, and soulless.
Yeah, it was like a
The plot
very
has something
long
to do with
movie.
King Arthur and a magical staff. But really, it's all just an excuse for CGI robots to smash one another, and for a bunch of unnecessary explosions.
Awesome barbecue, awesome pool.
And if that weren't enough, the plot
They-
even drags
they
Harriet
was wrong
Tubman
in
into the
that
mix. She's an American hero, and this is how we repay her? The Circle. With some movies, you can tell right away they're going to be awful, but when some films bomb, it's a little more surprising. Take The Circle, for example. It's based on a novel by award-winning author Dave Eggers, and it features a
That's like
who's
a
who of
bad
big Hollywood
movie.
names, including Emma Watson, Tom Hanks, and John Boyega. The plot centers on a creepy internet corporation known as The Circle, which wants to create a world where privacy is a thing of the
Yeah, like
past.
it's just a
Unfortunately, the
long
film hits you
movie
right over the
with
head with its
boring
message.
stuff in
As
it.
the Atlantic put
Something
it, it's
I'll
all like an
fall asleep
episode
to,
of Black
basically.
Mirror, if Black Mirror made no effort whatsoever to be subtle. 50 Shades Darker. The sequel to
Okay.
50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades...
Before we get farther into this reaction, 50 Shades of Grey, the first part was good. I give it to them. They did good. The actresses were good. The plot was good. The scenes was awesome. This one, they are breaking up this movie in different parts of the book. They had the books in order. They're breaking up the movies in different categories of the way the books were. Like, if you're going to make a 50 Shades of Grey Part 1, make it as the second book. Make the second book the second part of the movie, not the book after that. It was terrible.
Darker will leave you writhing in pain. But then, maybe that's what the movie wants. Either way, if you're hoping for a cinematic masterpiece here, prepare to be disappointed. As pointed out by the New York Times, the movie is full of abrupt swings in tone, dead-end detours, and flatline performances, including from Dakota Johnson. If you're looking for titillation, you probably won't find it here either.
Yeah.
Sure, Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson are good looking, but that can't make up for the lack of sexual tension. As Slate put it, for every inventively
one anyways.
choreographed bedroom caper, there are 3 that are about as sexy as a Geico ad. Just keep that in mind when 50 Shades Freed shows up in 2018.
Nope.
After all, Geico ads are a whole lot cheaper than a
They
theater
are.
ticket.
They're really funny.
Yeah, no. Your line is Geico could save you 15% or more. No, 15% or more.
Rings. Perhaps more than any other genre, horror movies are
I
notorious for
hated
generating
The
so many
Ring.
sequels that you forget why the
Oh,
first
I
one was
hate this
good.
movie so
That's true
bad.
for Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Paranormal Activity, and now The
hate
Ring.
The Ring.
Nearly 15 years after the American remake made us all a little nervous about TV static, we've got a new, watered-down version called Rings. The plot is basically a carbon copy of the first film. There's a killer videotape, and someone watches it. Birth,
Same
movies,
plot as
death
the first
summed up the
movie.
problem with Rings perfectly, writing that the movie becomes something far worse than just bad, boring, and also bad, but so boring.
It
In other
was a
words, first you
bad
watch
movie.
it, then you go do something else. Anything, really. Because Rings makes no lasting impact whatsoever. Thanks for watching. Click the looper icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.
Alright, y'all. So, that's the ending of this reaction. I didn't think All Eyes on Me and Underworld was going to make the top 10 because those were my favorite movies to watch. But, y'all, some of those movies deserved to be on that top 10 list. You can't lie. some of those movies deserved to be on that top 10 list because they were just the actresses and the directors and the writers. They could have came out. They could have came stronger. They could have came stronger with those movies. But my name is Nay, and this is Nay Reaction First TV. Before I leave, I'm gonna leave out with a quote that sticks with me. You are the creator of your own destiny. Don't ever forget that. And if you want to do something with your life, go do it and be proud of it. Without further ado, see y'all next video. I'm out.